Hi everybody. In this set of videos I'm going to talk about services and migrated code. A lot of time people come to me and ask how can I do something in .NET that I've never done before on the migrated code. And actually the answer to that should be split into two things. How do I do what I want to do? And once I do it, connect it to the migrated code. And the services is one of those itchy topics that most people deal with once in any workplace that they work in, because you only need to configure the code to be a service once and then it just works. So there are not many masters of configuring services, and it's not that fun to do. I've played with it, spent the better half of this morning recapping on something that I've done a year ago, trying to polish it to the point where I can present it. So creating a service is one of those tasks that has a lot of little configurations that you need to take into considerations, but once you set it up and configure it, it's a breeze to work with. And luckily, Google is your friend. Any questions that you run into, somebody already ran into it before, so you just need a bit of creative Googling to find what you actually want. And we're, just like I said before, when you're looking at a problem of how can I do something with the migrated code, and that is architectural, like web, like services, like something else, first figure out how to do it independently, and then connecting it to the migrated code is usually a breeze. So let's start with services. I wanted to create a Windows service in .NET, so the first thing I did was to search on Windows services and how to create a Windows services in C#. And there's a lot of answers out there, and I followed them. I'll make a shortcut for you guys and try to walk you through it. Now, when you're thinking of services, there's several things you need to consider. First and foremost, Google is your friend. Search through it and work with it. Second thing to do, work in administrative mode. Okay, you need to be the administrator of the machine in which you are developing services, otherwise it will be more difficult, because services are registered to the operation system, so you need to have the right privileges to do most of these things. So to run a Visual Studio in administrative mode, I'm going to go to Visual Studio, right click, run as administrator. So a lot of times when you're having problems, go back to that list and check one by one, check the items, see if any of them make sense to the problem you're having, if any of them is a solution to the problems that you're having. Great. So after following the previous instructions, I'll start with my Visual Studio. I'm using version control here so I can commit my changes, and I'll add a new project, and I'll choose of type Windows, Classic Desktop, Windows Service, and I'll call it Northwind Service. Great. Now I'll commit it. And let's just give it a name first of all. I'm going to click here and go to the property screen and call the service Northwind Service. This is the names that will appear everywhere when you reflect to it in the operation system. And I'm going to build it. It builds, and I'm going to commit it. Added the service. Great. Now let's try to run it. Well, when we run the service, we'll get this message that you cannot actually run a service from the command line or the debugger. You need to install it using the install util. Now, just like before, I'll go to Google and ask dear Google how to install a service in C#. And it will show me this answer, which seems kind of cool. Just run this utility and the name of the service. Great, so let's do that. I'll copy it. And I'll go over to where the service is. So I'll right click, open folder in File Explorer, bin, debug, and I'll go to File and open Command Prompt as administrator. Here we can see our services.exe, and we'll go ahead and open Command Prompt as administrator. Run the command and say install Northwind service.exe. Well, we're not quite there yet because we can see that it's actually removing it because there are no installer. So again, Google, my friend, go ahead, remove yes, this is the one, and I see an answer here, and what it actually says is that I need to right click and add an installer, because having a service is one thing and installing it is another. I don't know why Microsoft chose to do the template like that, but okay. So I'm going to say right click, add installer, and it added my installer, and that installer has several configurations. Let's have a look. The service itself, the properties, we can see that we can choose the startup type, which is kind of interesting. We can see the service name. We can see all sorts of definitions that make sense for services. And when we look at the installer properties, we can see that we can change its account. Now we want to have a strong user that can do a lot of things. So I'm going to say local system, which can access any file and learn more about accounts from your administrator. So let's build. Perfect. Let's go back to our installer, and we can see that the transaction install has completed. We can go to the services window, and we can see that now we have Northwind service and it's on manual. Great. We can start it and we can stop it. Which brings me to the next topic on my list, which says Event Viewer is your friend. Okay, so with services, there's no user interface. You don't really know what's going on. And Event Viewer is a great friend with that. It will give you the information you need when you need it. So let's switch over to the Event Viewer. And I'll open it using Windows. I'll say Event and choose the View Event Logs. I'll go to Windows Log, Application, and I'll start by clearing it because there's a lot of junk over here. And we can see then that when we stop and start our service, we can see an indication in the event log that the service has started successfully. Okay. Now, if we'll have a problem, let's go and stop it. We can see that it stopped. And if we'll have a problem there, we'll see it here in the event view. Well, so far for creating the installer and setting it up. In the next video, we're going to work more on configuring it, playing with it, and eventually applying it to the migrated code. Thanks for watching.